I just put my hand in my coffee. Oh. Hello, my name is Jess, and this is my ADHD lifestyle, and today I want to talk about what I do to keep myself productive even when I'm really struggling to focus. I'm calling this a period of foci resistance. That was a very dumb joke, I'm sorry. Anyway, so if you like this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. And if you really love my content and it's your favorite thing on the internet, hit the bell icon so you can get notified every single time that I post. Also, as you guys can see, like right about here, he's loafed. He's probably going to sleep for a bit. This is my new pet. I talked about him in my, not my last video that will have come out by the time this comes out, but the New Year's resolution video. His name is Shiro. He's very cute. Moving on, I am back today with some more ADHD content. However, every single ADHD related video I have tried to record in the last couple weeks has had something wrong with it, and I've had to completely start it over for various reasons. This is now the second time that I am recording this particular video. So just giving you guys a little bit of information about my process right now. But anyway, today I want to talk about productivity a little bit, and I'm going to try and take a little bit of a different approach to this because I've seen some things online that I really agree with since I've written this script about how a lot of ADHD content really does focus on productivity. For me, I just want to clarify before I even get into this whole conversation and these tips that I'm going to give you. When I'm talking about productivity, I don't even just mean like work productivity or producing some kind of product or anything like that. I also mean, being able to sit down and like watch a TV show or, being able to relax, I think are both also productive things that I sometimes struggle to do when I'm in a period where I just absolutely cannot focus on anything. I am going to be kind of framing this around being a working young professional, because that is who I am, and I think that's who these tips will really help. But I know that there are things outside of being a productive member of society. If you've watched any of my videos by now, you really know that I don't I don't care if you're a productive member of society. You deserve to live. That's just how that is for me. But obviously people with ADHD, we have to make a living somehow. And I think it's important to remember that there are things out there and treatments and things that we can do that could help us do that and make sure that we live a little bit more comfortably. And that's kind of why I wanted to share this. Like I said, I want to talk about periods where I have really a lot of trouble focusing on anything at all, let alone being productive. So that means any period of time where I just can't focus on any work. I can't really even get myself to cook. Sometimes I can't even sit down and watch a TV show because if it has a plot, I'm just not going to be able to follow it. And, that's something that I think a lot of people with ADHD sometimes struggle with. They get into these periods where they just can't focus on anything, and we need stimulation. So you're just kind of sitting there antsy and you want to do something, but there's just nothing you can focus on. And, something about writing videos like this in particular, I think really helps me really focus in on what I do for myself in these situations, which I think is ultimately better for me, and I'm hoping it's going to be helpful to you guys as well. I want to talk a little bit more about what this looks like for me. I mentioned not being able to focus on anything, including like a TV show or trying to relax. When I have problems with focus, it usually starts in one area of my life and then balloons to everything. So, one day I might be able to force myself through my work tasks. I'll get a few things done and, I'll feel pretty okay about what I did. And then I won't make dinner for myself that night. I'll order takeout or something like that because I'm just too tired. I really just cannot push myself through the task of making dinner, or sometimes I can't push myself through the task of doing dishes, and it starts to spiral very quickly for me. So all of a sudden I'm like putting things off. I'm like, you know what, I'll make dinner tomorrow and I'll just eat these leftovers. I'll do my laundry later, and I just keep pushing things off. And that's really where the problem becomes for me, because I tend to force myself to focus all my energy on continuing to be a productive member of society. But what I mean is I tend to force myself to focus on my work tasks, so things that are for my day job. And then as I move forward, I really quickly discover that all of my like household duties go by the wayside. And that's not good. So another thing that, I want to point out is like I've said, as I've kind of described this problem that I have, that my symptoms of ADHD tend to compound on each other. I've already got executive functioning deficit, right? So as I kind of am trying to force myself through tasks, even tasks that I want to do, and then on top of that, sometimes I'll go through periods of hyper focus when I'm having a period of foci resistance. Is what I'm going to call it, for the rest of this video now, I guess. But when I am going through a period where I can't focus on anything, I will sometimes hyper focus, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm out. I'm beyond. I'm good. I'm gonna be good from now on, and then I just crash afterwards. When you find yourself in this position, and sometimes like things like hyperfocus will mask the problems that you're having, and so on and so forth, you kind of run into the situation where you don't know how to move forward. Like, do you try something new? Do you try something that's worked for you before? Do you talk to your doctor about medication? Well, I'm going to be honest with you. If you are on medication that is supposed to be helping you for things like this and it is not helping you, please go talk to your doctor about it. We are pro talking to your doctor in this household. In my opinion, it's something that you should try and create an open dialogue with your doctor about. As you guys know, though, I am not currently on medication for various reasons, mostly to do with my insurance. I am going to try and focus on things that are not related to medication. So things that, you're not going to go to the doctor for or anything like that, mostly because I know that some people don't have access to medication or healthcare or a doctor or a therapist for various reasons. And because of that, I'm trying to give tips that anyone could do in their home or their workplace to kind of help them out. Okay, so tip number 1, the first thing I do when I am in a period of foci resistance is to go back to my planner. I make a list of to-dos in my planner, and I start to prioritize them as best I can, and I start writing them in my weekly layout. Now, I will explain what I mean in a second. I just got a new planner for the year, so let me go grab my old one because that will be way easier to show you guys. Okay, so this was my 2020 planner. I actually I thought about this planner so much in 2019. So this was my planner. I would go back to it whenever I had a situation where I couldn't focus on anything, which was really helpful to me. And so what I kind of started to do was I developed this system where I would make a full list of everything I needed to do in a week, and then I would kind of prioritize them, and then I would assign them 2 days. So I'm trying to show you guys this is not the best example. I will hold it up for you though. So see how I would, in the weekly layout, I wrote down goals for the day. And when I did this, I would always consider both the work tasks I had to do and the household tasks that I had to do. So I would always try and budget myself for making sure I had enough energy to still do those house tasks. So the reason I did that is, and I'm going to tell you something radical. And it's I hope you knew this already, but I'm going to if you don't, I'm going to tell you now. To be a good employee, you do not need to completely burn yourself out at work. It's not necessary. Your employer will get used to the amount of productivity that you put forth, and you do not need to burn yourself out for them. Picked up my mic. Now it's messed up. Basically, when it comes down to it, I am very much a proponent of the idea that you have a finite amount of energy. Work is going to get some of that energy. Yes, your employer will get some of that energy. Hopefully, your employer is not demanding all of your energy. One thing that really helped me when I started working from home is I didn't kind of feel like I had to force myself through things even when I didn't really have the energy or the brain space to do it. So, I could, work for a few hours in the morning when my brain was still kind of fresh, get some work tasks checked off the list. And then, once I finished that, I would be like, okay, I'm going to do something else for a little while. And I would just do dishes like in the middle of the day because it allowed me both the headspace to think maybe about some of the work tasks I was working on if they were more brain necessary, or even just, to get the dishes done. People often forget that work-life balance is really, really important. And I think it's exceptionally hard for those of us with ADHD because I feel like we're often like forcing ourselves to push through and do better and work 4 times as hard because we feel like we're not working hard enough a lot of times. And let me tell you, 1, you're probably working hard enough. 2, everyone else is doing the weird like things that you feel like are a slack off thing. And 3, your employer does not own you. Just putting that out there. So yeah, if you guys need to take time to take your finite amount of energy and put it into not only your workplace but also your home life, that's okay. I'm giving you permission. Not that you needed it, but here I am as a young professional. I'm about 5 years into my career. Honestly, just do it. You know, take maybe just start doing it on Fridays or something like that to get yourself used to it. But the point is that you really don't need to burn yourself out at work. And I think that's one of the things that becomes the hardest is you need to start trying to balance the resources that your brain and your body physically provide you. And ultimately, I do want to point out, while this isn't a very important part of this, when it comes down to it, you're going to be a better employee if you do that. Now, I don't think that being a better employee is necessarily an end goal for everyone. I think for those of us with ADHD especially, our goal should really focus more on having a good and healthy work-life balance. But I just wanted to say that, you know, just like it is another piece and another component to this, that ultimately, if you have a better work-life balance, you're ultimately going to be a better employee. And I think a lot of people forget that because they're kind of in that grind culture that kind of comes along with working in the United States, which is a thing that, you know, is an issue that I think people need to work on, and it's not our fault, basically. Society needs to work on it. I've rambled a lot. I'm going to move on to my next tip. Tip number 2. If you get focused on something, even if it is not the top priority of your to-do list, even if it's not necessarily on your to-do list, but if you like get focused on a task like doing dishes or, you know, writing a report for work, whatever it is, just do it. Just let yourself have that moment, because that feeling of accomplishment that when you're like in the middle of a period where you just cannot focus, a period of foci resistance. This is so dumb. But like when you're in a period where you cannot focus on anything, that one little blip of accomplishment will make you feel so much better. It will help you not fall into a pattern of depression. Just trust me, it's very, very helpful. That feeling of accomplishment is very important when you're having a period where you can't focus on anything. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, that knocks me out of that period much better than anything else. Now, I want to say, this is different than hyper-focusing. I'm talking about when you just are able to do a task. Like, it just suddenly feels a lot easier. I will say that the number one problem I have is I think I have fallen into this and I end up being hyper-focused instead. So just try to keep that in mind. Again, hyper-focus is the worst when you get into this situation, but hopefully you'll be able to kind of differentiate what's going on. And if you do get hyper-focused and you do something for a while, you know, you did do something, so that is also good. You just need to make sure that you don't fall into a pattern of hyper-focus where you're maybe making kind of the burnout a little bit worse. So tip number 3, falsify urgency. So yeah, basically what that means for me is if you can do this and it works for you, I would highly recommend doing it, but set fake dates, whether they're you know, a few days before the actual due date, or they're you know, things that you've set because you don't have a due date for something. I would typically do this to force myself to think, okay, I need to get this done by this date, and usually then the date was a little bit ahead of time. It really helped me in college. It doesn't help me as much now that I am setting my own dates as like a worker. So that's just, you know, it's something that you can do. If you think that it works for you, it's an option. It's not going to work for everyone, is basically what I'm trying to say. Okay, tip number 4. Sorry, my rabbit keeps distracting me. But my 4th tip for this, when you cannot focus on anything, is honestly, try tactics that have worked for you before in these periods rather than trying new stuff. Here's the reason why. You will always have time when you're feeling good to try new tactics that will help you focus. You're not necessarily going to have that energy when you already can't focus on anything. So I think it's really important to remember that trying new things, especially with like people with ADHD, we have our impulsivity. We'll be like, okay, I'm gonna try something new. I'm gonna completely change what I'm doing and yada yada yada. And like that's extra brain space. You need to keep in mind that that's something that's going to take up more thought, more capacity. It's just not worth spending the extra energy sometimes. And I think you're often better off going, okay, you know what? I know the Pomodoro technique works for me. You're better off setting a timer and just being like, I'm going to set 2 Pomodoros in the morning. And then once I've done that, I'm going to move on and do something else for a little bit. Kind of get yourself back into the rhythm of maybe doing 2 in the morning, then 3 in the morning, then, you know, however many you want to do a day. I think that overall is going to work way better for most people. And like, for example, I know time blocking works really well for me, especially when I'm in a period where I can't focus on anything. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll literally write in my planner, like, AM, I'm going to do this, and PM, I'm going to do that. And so that's something that I think is a really good option for people who have ADHD who are struggling. I wouldn't say it's a, hey buddy. I wouldn't necessarily go, it's a good option. Oh no, don't nudge my mic. I think it's a really important reminder for those of us with ADHD that we don't always have to be changing what we're doing. Sometimes tried and true, buddy, don't nudge the mic. Sometimes tried and true is just the best option for us. So if you find yourself in a situation where you just can't focus on anything and you're like really, really struggling, go back to what's worked for you before, whether it be Pomodoro or basic time blocking or, you know, to-do lists, whatever it is that works for you and your system, go to that first. And if that really does not work and you really do feel like you need to change something, then change something. Because 9 times out of 10, when I tried to change something, it was just more brain space. It was harder for me to focus. I was too focused on like this new thing I was trying to do. And so eventually I kind of hit this point where I was like, you know what? When I'm having this problem, I just need to remind myself that I need to go back, not to the drawing board, but back to the list of things I know works. Hey, actually, if you have something in particular that really helps you in this situation, comment it down below. That would be cool. Just as a reminder to yourself. And, you know, for me, because I like to hear what other people do. I'm nosy. So, tip number 5, practice some self-care. On several occasions since I've started working from home, when I'm having like a really hard time focusing on anything, I have taken a bath in the middle of the day, and honestly, it's very, very helpful. I don't know what it is, you know, and it works with like a shower as well for me, but you know, just like kind of walking completely away, doing something that's only for me for a little bit, and just like kind of just taking a moment is really, really helpful when you can't focus on anything. And I think a lot of people forget part of the reason that people with ADHD fall into periods where they can't focus on anything is because our symptoms are starting to overwhelm us. And sometimes the reasons that those symptoms are overwhelming us is because we're stressed. There's a lot going on at work. You know, we're thinking about a lot. Maybe there's something horrible going on in the world, like a pandemic. But, you know, taking a step back from all of that, just really thinking about yourself for a little bit, watching a YouTube video that's going to make you laugh, watching an episode or two of a TV show that's like kind of your comfort show, whether it be like Parks and Rec or The Office or Bob's Burgers, which is mine, you know, anything like that, just doing something for yourself for a little bit is usually a really, really good idea when you're in this I can't focus on anything situation. And I think ultimately the things that cause us to get overwhelmed by our symptoms are often going to be alleviated in some way by a stress reducing activity that is like a self-care activity. That's just something I would say that's my last tip. Honestly, I think it's really important for us with ADHD to remember that we just have different limitations sometimes than people who are neurotypical. And, you know, our particular symptoms do affect our productivity in our daily life and our, you know, our work life especially. And so I think it's important to remember that, first of all, work-life balance is really important. And that's really what your main goal should be when you're in situations, any situation, even when you're not struggling to focus, just remember your work-life balance. It's really important. And, you know, honestly, like, I, our grind culture in the United States, I don't know if it's like this in other parts of the world, but it's really, really harmful to those of us with ADHD because we feel like we're not doing enough all the time as it is. And then you've got all these people talking, like, making jokes about, you know, I have coffee for lunch and never leave my desk. It's not good for neurotypical people, and it's worse for those of us with ADHD. So, in my opinion, just do your best to focus on your work-life balance. I think that's ultimately like what my, hopefully the biggest takeaway of this video is remember that your life outside of work still matters, and just kind of move from there, because I think it's going to ultimately be much better for anyone who is dealing with periods of foci resistance. Dumb term I made up. But, you know, I think it's ultimately going to be better for anyone who is struggling with this sort of thing, and struggling with focusing on work or their daily life. And also, another thing I want to point out, and I think this, I don't know if this really helps other people with ADHD, but it does help me sometimes, is just remember, you'd be hard-pressed to find a neurotypical, like, student or coworker who does not also run into these problems and who does not also slack off a little bit when it comes to work, just to give themselves a better work-life balance. So just keep that in mind. Hi, buddy. Anyway, the word of the day today is focus, which means the center of interest or activity. No. Tiny terror. I hope if you guys are interested, or you liked this video, or you made it to the end of this video, that you will put the word of the day in the comments down below. You can just comment the word focus. It really helps me out with engagement, so that would be really cool. If you guys want to share, like I said, comment down below something that really works. No. If you guys would like to share, or like I said before, comment down below something that really works for you when you are in periods of foci resistance. Tell me if you like the phrase foci resistance. It sounds so dumb to me. Anyway, I think I'm gonna go now. I hope you all have a great day. I hope that all of my fellow young professionals who have ADHD find a work environment and a work-life balance that works well for them. I'm gonna actually go now because I think my rabbit is trying to get on the couch again, and he knows he is not supposed to. Bye, guys. Oh. I thought he got out of his pen for like half a second because I couldn't see it in the screen. Be good, make good decisions. I shouldn't have let him out.